95 BFM.
It's pretty exciting to be talking to you. The first thing I'd like to say is welcome back. I know you haven't actually gone anywhere, but as McCluskey, it's great to have you back after such a long time. What's changed over the last 20 years since you made a record, and how do you sum that up in 36 minutes of a new one?
Yeah, what's changed in 20 years? Oh my words. Yeah, well, we'd have to probably start alphabetically, wouldn't we? So we start with Andorra, I suppose, and go from there. Well, everything's changed, yet everything's the same. Was it Mick Jagger who said that? I don't know. And also, I don't care. It's just a pleasure to play rock music. That's what is the same. What has changed is the cells in our bodies several times over. I mean, we are essentially different people, but I think the enamel in our teeth is probably the same. Although Damien did have his teeth redone recently, so perhaps not in his case. Yeah, it's weird to have a record out. I'll be honest with you, it's super exciting. I've done records for the last 8-9 years, but I've released them on Bandcamp on a whim. I mean, I released one at 12:15 in the morning because I'd finished it and I was just excited and I wanted to get it out. And as much as you know, we try not to just be slaves of capitalism, it's amazing that you release a thing and have it in the shops and all of that kind of stuff. It's amazing.
Luckily, you've got Ipecac Recordings putting this out in the Northern Hemisphere. Presumably there aren't 1,000 records sitting in Mike Patton's living room right now waiting to be mailed out. But what words of encouragement would you have to him if he was currently looking at 1,000 new McCluskey albums?
What I would say is, Mike, have a system, okay? You need a system. You don't approach this like one of your like crazy side projects with the Chaos Pad, vocalizing all over the top of the instructions you're hopefully giving your postman. You know, you want a system. You want to decide whether you're going to be packaging the albums first and then using the address labels. If I was him, I'd be prepared. I would have been prepared. The time the records arrived at the house, I would have already had all the addresses printed off. I already would have had a system for indicating multiples for packages, that kind of thing. So that would be my advice to Mike. Like every good Cub Scout, be prepared.
The record's called The World Is Still Here and So Are We. I think that reflects your sentiment at the top of this chat about everything's different, but it's all kind of still the same, right? Did you have the intention of making a record as you were songwriting, or what order did those things happen in?
I suppose we did, but without really having a major conversation about it. It just, I mean, I said a little bit flippantly in the last interview I did, the record kind of happened by osmosis, but it did to a degree. You're spending time with people, you're enjoying playing music, it's lots of fun. Songs are the natural result of that time spent together. It was most of the time, it was easy in the sense that it went well, and it was easy, but it was difficult in the sense that we just don't have a lot of time to devote to it. We don't make enough money to be able to make McCluskey itself a full-time thing. People have families to support. If we were all living in bedsit in Newport or something, maybe we could just about scrape by. But so it was, the process was slower because we could maybe rehearse on average one and a half times a month. And our music is music written in rooms as opposed to constructed and then brought in and tentatively shaped. It has to be played at volume, really. I've never really articulated it like this to myself, but if you're involved in the arts in general, music or whatever, if you're heavily in it, you're always working. You're always working, you're always on. I'm always switched on to hear something somebody says which sounds like a song title. My brain is set that, what did you say? I'm always working and loving songs. If I'm walking to the shops, there's an idea going on, and really you're doing work even when you're not thinking about it. When you're watching television, you're putting together patterns of words that you find funny or you don't enjoy or whatever. So it's about being present in the world as well as being present in your music. However, sitting around saying that kind of thing a lot makes you sound like a dickhead, doesn't it? But you do have to accept it about yourself. The problem is, I think, with some people, some artists, they wear that kind of thing quite heavily, and you just got to. Ultimately, it's all quite funny, because I'm talking this seriously about music, which is at times very, very silly indeed. But by silly, I don't mean a joke. It has jokes in it at times, but it's certainly not a joke. And I think that distinction probably escapes some people.
Yeah, I think so. That must have been a challenge at various points in McCluskey's career. I mean, even just scanning down the song titles would put some people off immediately, not to deter any listeners from exploring further.
No, but those people should be put off. I don't want them listening to the record. They're people who have a one-dimensional idea of what rock music is, or a very particular idea of rock music is. Because most rock musicians, even the rubbish ones, are quite well-rounded people with lots of interests and a good sense of humour. It very rarely comes across in their music, in my experience. Rock music is a particular prism which describes a teenage rage, or, in a lot of cases. It's a lot more complex than that, and a lot of the people making it are far more mature than the music they make would suggest. It's embarrassing singing to the kids when you're in your 40s. Shut up.
There are a lot of nice guys, shit bands out there, aren't there?
Yeah, there are, but fair play to them in a lot of senses, as long as I don't have to hear their music. It's great. One thing I realised quite profoundly during the pandemic is I really like musicians for the most part. I like the childlike aspect to them, and the people who can still be delighted and excited by the world. It's great to be around people like that and harness their energy, just not necessarily listen to their songs.
After a 20-year gap in making records as McCluskey, the word nostalgia can't be avoided, I guess. How do you relate personally to the stuff you like through that sort of prism of nostalgia, and what did that make you consider when you came to make this record?
I haven't really stepped back and thought about it, probably just because I haven't had the time. I think sometimes it's like, analysis or therapy is sometimes something you can only get to when you've got the luxury of the time to do it. The band of then exists in a almost ring fence, and this band exists as well. It's just this band has access to that mode, I guess, those songs. But the nostalgia is definitely important, and the nostalgia at times floods from us. I remember, the moments I had when I played those songs, I wrote those songs. Damien remembers when he was watching those songs from the other side of the stage. Zach remembers the first band he was in. Of course, that's all going to be part of it, because that's part of the flood of stuff which happens on stage. But the newer stuff keeps it pinned to the present, I suppose. Yeah, so don't underestimate the nostalgia on stage as well. You've also got to kick that nostalgia in the balls, figuratively speaking. You can't have it hanging around. You can use nostalgia to bring you to the party, I guess. But if you're still there banging on about what it was like 20 odd years ago, you're probably a dickhead. Or you're lonely, or you have unmet needs which need to be met somewhere else.
There's definitely riffs from 20 years ago that must be amazing to play. They're great to hear in the crowd, and you've got a whole bunch of new ones and some new tricks and surprises, I guess, to the listener on this record.
We do, and they all fit together really well. It just felt natural. We were a little bit nervous when we played the initial batch of songs we wrote, which was, I think the first one we played was the song which is on the record, Kafkaesque novelist Franz Kafka. We played that one first, and the Digging You Deep, but they just seem to fit. We don't have to make excuses for them. They're not going to be for a lot of the crowd, and for the band as well. They're not at times going to be armed with the same meaning yet, because they haven't been around for as long. They haven't been on as many trips with you or something. So there is going to be, for some people in the crowd, there will definitely be a little bit of a disconnect sometimes when there's new stuff. That's totally understandable, and it's a shame, but we can't manipulate time when we're on stage. And sometimes maybe you just don't like a song. That's okay as well. It is just rock music, but we love it. I'm lucky enough to be in the position of being in the band then and the band now and the bands in between and all that. And I know this is the ultimate form of the band. The other band, the old band, the first band, it was a really good band. There's some great performers in it. A lot of sense was lucky to have met those musicians, even though they could be difficult characters at times. I mean, can't everyone to a degree, but whatever. But by the nature of the people in the band, it could be quite a variable band as well. Chaotic. Some people like that, and for a lot of people out there, they think that chaos, or maybe that it wasn't really even discord. It was just a little bit awkward sometimes. It wasn't ever any fist fights or whatever. But some people think that kind of thing, that kind of tension is integral to great art. And I think they're confusing that with just the story, which is a different thing. And sometimes it is, because people rub up together and say after 3 or 4 years, when bands create great music, that's when they're really starting to get on each other's tits. But I know, being in the band I'm in now and walking on that stage and owning that stage every single night, and believe me, I'm not a man prone to talk like that about a lot of things, that this is the ultimate form of the band. So if somebody doesn't agree, nah, it really is. Well, mate, you just need to believe the evidence of your own ears and eyes, because my God, we're cool looking people.
When you first started playing the odd show again as McCluskey almost 10 years ago now, with brackets or an asterisk or whatever, it was to help out local music venues that were closing down or in risk of closing. What's the importance of those spaces to you?
Well, it's an ecosystem for bands like us. Those venues, I mean, sometimes you'll go to a venue like that, a noted community venue, and someone who's working behind the bar's kind of a dick or whatever. But that's human nature. These venues are important. Without venues like that, bands like us wouldn't exist. Not a person who likes to pay lip service to things or just say yay for obviously good things. It's not a thing, but they really do. And when it's within your power to help out, it hasn't always been in my power to help people out. Sometimes as a person, as an individual in this world, you have to be financially selfish in order to scrape through. We were in a position where we were valuable enough to be able to bring people in, and we weren't counting on that money. It was great to do. It was lovely to do. It's a really selfish act. It makes you feel good about yourself. Feeling good about yourself, it's quite addictive. I can understand why some people really get sucked into that charity grift. It does. It's lovely to do things selflessly. But those venues are important, like certain individuals are important. Certain people who promote music, who DJ, who do it without any thought of personal advancement. Without those people, and I've known several in my life, bands like us wouldn't exist. We'd exist, but in a much more reduced form. It's that guy who owns that record shop telling this guy who puts on shows about this great band he's seen, and them having faith in that and meeting these people and knowing that they've got faith in this almost indefinable thing. And yeah, it's really important.